I mean, everybody just genuinely cares about each other, which is, I think, very evident. I mean, I felt that honestly, the first day I stepped in. Um, it just seems like there's this kind of like undertone of optimism and just genuine care. And I think that um, probably kind of bleeds out into the way that we operate with clients too. I'm sure. I mean, it's from what I've heard, it seems like that's how most people feel. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I've the well, first of all, I love hearing that's the case, because I think we kind of talk about it, hint at that, but you never know until you show up. Like, is this real? Right? Like, is what they're talking about real? And
Right.
I've heard words like caring before. I think I've definitely heard people say like, the team just cares so much, and I think that comes through. I do think that comes through to the client. I think care comes through. The optimism thing is something I've always hoped that we have. I don't hear that word thrown around a lot, but I'm glad to hear it, because I think that's so important.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, when you were kind of talking about that the other day, about one of the books you read, I the first thing I drew was a connection to native because that seems to be the vibe. Even from just interactions with people, like when I'm on a call with Brandon, and sometimes it maybe doesn't pan out exactly like you had painted it picture perfect in your mind. Like the end result of that is still encouraging one another for the things that we did well and thinking through how can we strategically approach this better moving forward, which I think really just points back to optimism in a way. I'm a strategic thinker. I tend to think outside the box, but at the same time, I'm also very analytical and kind of like systematic. So um, whenever I have opportunities for those two things to kind of like join and come together, I feel fairly fulfilled with the work that I'm doing. And um, even just so far, working here, and that's kind of what I do every day, really, in a way, is you're looking at Google Ads predominantly. That's the most of where my time is spent, outside of keyword research and some strategic stuff. You're kind of looking at it and you're saying, okay, here's the confines of how Google built this. Here's kind of the rules of play, so to speak. How can we leverage that to get the best outcome? But at the same time, the story that's being told is being told in numbers. And so you have to kind of draw the pictures out, and think, okay, where do we go from here? And so for me, just in the first few months, even, it's been a nice kind of balance of the two, which has been very fulfilling. I feel like that's where I kind of thrive. If that makes sense.
I think paid search is endlessly interesting. It would be easy for someone who doesn't fully understand it to be like, oh, that's probably simple. People look for this, you bid on that, you write some text, big deal. Like, how hard can it be? Yeah, I guess if you're doing it like a really low level, that you can look at it like that. But if you're trying to do it at a high level, which we're kind of motivated to push it towards, it's like this never ending game of trying to figure out like human psychology and where they are in the process, and why do they use that word versus this word, and how does it compare to this competitor, and what word's going to make them more likely to click, or are you bringing in unqualified leads? Like, to me, it's just like, it's a huge puzzle that to me never stops becoming. I mean, it's just always interesting. And then the nice thing about it is the gratification of a win is very quick. Like, if you hit on
Oh
something,
yeah.
it's very fast. You don't have to wait months. You have to wait hours sometimes, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah, for sure. Immediate feedback, right?
what about that process is probably the most interesting to you right now, or are there particular problems that you're trying to kind of level up on, or enjoying trying to crack right now?
That's a good question. I mean, I think the keyword research side of things is always very interesting because there's always things that stand out of like, I would not have thought that's the way that people tend to think about searching for this particular thing, yet it aligns very well. So I think that's always kind of cool to see, and gives you a little bit of like a keyhole into, like you're saying, kind of like human psychology, the way that people think. So I think going through the process of doing some keyword research and analysis for a few clients has been pretty cool. It's been eye opening in a lot of ways, but also thinking like how that strategically kind of allows for us a path forward of how we build our campaigns, um, is cool as well. And I think for me, kind of so far, the biggest, I guess I'd say, um, growth point where I tend to spend a lot of time trying to improve is in drawing the large picture when just looking at theoretically a glorified Excel spreadsheet of numbers inside of Google Ads, right? But continuing to see like how other people on the team approach that has been like, it's been really growing for me, because I get to see how people, even just within our own team, how people see things totally different. Yeah, so I think that's been like one thing that I've enjoyed, and one thing that I think has allowed me to grow and kind of see what all's happening and what can we do about it. Yeah.
One thing that we've tried to do a little bit differently is that, to me, search is such an important, really key area. I mean, organic search typically tends to be the highest contributor of traffic to a website. Paid search, you need to be able to do that right. So you're not just burning money or leaving money on the table. And the data that you can collect is so valuable and rich. What I've seen in my career is that it's the best source of data that never gets leveled up to decision makers. It just stays kind of in this like search cave with people who oftentimes don't fully understand the implications to the business. They just understand like, these numbers are good, I'll try to drive up these numbers. So we've always been really visible with like the learnings and try to take those up the ladder and be like, hey, like you talked about drawing the big picture. Like, here's what we're understanding. Like, these are the questions that we can answer. Some of them aren't even search related questions. It's just like customer intel. Now you know this about your customer.
Yeah.
And the reactions from our clients has been awesome, because they're just like, oh my gosh, like we've been debating that. Now we've got a data point on that. So it's, it's one of my favorite deliverables is the keyword research or the keyword analysis, because we can answer big questions that are even bigger than search. And to me, again, that's another thing that makes it more interesting is you're tapping into like how the clients are working through their problems, like the things they're trying to accomplish. It's not just execute on a channel.
Oh, for sure. And I think it even speaks quite a bit to competitors too. I mean, you can learn a lot about your competitors based off of, at least on the paid search side, what are things that they're bidding on? What does it seem that their customers are searching? And we've seen that too, just doing some of the stuff I've done so far. Like, oftentimes you have an idea of who your competitors are, but you can get pretty nitty gritty with exactly who's your biggest competitor, at least, and you can kind of break it up by channel, really, when you start looking down into keywords and what people are bidding on and what they're not.
The strategy you can put the strategy together just by looking at the numbers. You can see, oh, they really know what they're doing. We should really keep an eye on them, because they're adding a lot of sort of advanced techniques here. You can see their strategy, what they're going for, what they're not. You can see others who are kind of just like burning cash because they don't know what they're doing. And then others who are like playing in a particular niche. And so, yeah, I mean, with a little bit of that analysis, you can start to understand the landscape. And I love it whenever we can confirm that with our clients. They're like, oh yeah, what you're seeing is true. Like in every aspect of the business, this is what they're doing. So, and then you kind of find the place that you're going to be able to, like, where can we win in this? So it's fun to be able to unravel that. And you're basically just doing it with numbers and phrases, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the things that maybe you've picked up on or skilled up on as of lately? Are there anything that you can put your finger on and say like, oh, I'm like further down the road with this now since joining?
It's a good question. There's honestly, I feel like there's so much. It's hard to pinpoint. I think one thing I would say is, this is maybe a little bit more of a top level thing. Being able to see just the process of how Native approaches everything has been, I think, a huge learning experience for me. Because, I always kind of saw different pockets of digital marketing as just that, kind of different pockets, but seeing how they all kind of bleed together in the way we go about bringing clients in on stuff has been a huge learning curve, like a huge learning opportunity for me. I think more if I get more into like the technical side, just learning more and more about Google Ads and learning because it's constantly changing too. I mean, Google's a business themselves, right? So they're trying to make money too. And so they keep changing things also to help improve their business. And so continuing to refine your skill set in there and learning how the system operates and continuing to strategically think, how can we leverage that the best to deliver what the client needs, I think I've grown a lot in that just over the course of my time here. So I think that would be something I'd point to.
Yeah. Nick, when we were talking with you initially, the remote world has opened up like a million options for good talent. You can pretty much work almost anywhere. What was it about our group at Native that kind of drew you in and thought, okay, this is a good place to invest my time right now? What were some of those? What was, as you're kind of going through like your pro and con list of what do I do next? Like what led you over here to Native?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So for me, most of it came down to what people said about you guys. I had fortunate enough to have like, I think it was like 3 or 4 different touch points to the company. Some that currently work there, some that previously worked there, some that knew you guys just from kind of a networking experience. And they all spoke very highly of the culture, number one, and the way you guys go about your business. And so that for me was like, all right, I've heard some people that I know fairly well speak very highly of this place, and it's an opportunity for me to get to know more and see, do I fit? And it's totally rang true at this point. The culture has just been great, and we can go on and on and on about that as long as we want to. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the main thing. And yeah, it's been great. I've loved it. So,
well, I'm sure at some point somebody will reach out to you and ask you like, hey, have you heard of this place? What should I know? Like, what would be the important points you'd pass on if someone else was looking to join?
yeah, I mean, I think maybe the first thing I would say is that regardless of where you're at in your in your career path, I guess I'd say, like, for me, stepping in as someone who didn't have necessarily an extensive background in digital marketing, at least from a professional standpoint, the moment I walked in the door, my opinion was very valid. And so I think very quickly I saw a very transparent group of people who were very humble, no ego, and like allowed a floor for everybody to speak their opinion, even if it's like sometimes seemingly totally off the wall. And it's celebrated in that way. And so I think like that would be one of the big selling points. I think the other thing is just, the growth of the business also speaks for itself. I mean, people want to be somewhere that the business is doing well. And this kind of, we get both here, right? So.
Yeah, that's what I've always told people is, especially locally, we're probably the only one who has the momentum right now behind us. So, and because like you said, like everybody gets to put their thumbprints on us, everybody gets to put their hand on the steering wheel. Those are kind of rare things. Sometimes you get to put the hand on the steering wheel, but it's at a place that's like been stagnant for years. Or it's fast growing and there's only 2 people who get to touch the steering wheel. And so I think those are probably the things that are most unique, right? Is everybody's welcome to steer us as long as we're going to the same direction, basically, right? Like right. Everybody has influence on how we get there. So I think that's attractive to some people. There's other people who that's not attractive at all. In fact, that's a stressor. They're like, oh, too much change, or this isn't that comfortable. But that's not really the crew we're looking to build either. So, everybody's got a place, and I think we're learning like what's a good ad for our team.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
What are some of the things that you're excited about over the next couple of weeks or months with some of the work that you're on right now, or maybe some of the opportunities that you're seeing come up?
Yeah, I mean, just continuing to be, I guess, kind of fleshed into more management stuff has been something that's been fun, but also something I look forward to. I haven't been super client facing yet at this point, but I look forward to that. I mean, the relationship aspect of it is something that I'm excited about. And I think also something that I think is fairly unique at Native as well. I mean, so far I've been surprised, honestly, but in a good way, of like how much client involvement is like fleshed into what we do. I think it's easy to kind of potentially easy to sit back behind kind of the veil of Google Ads and just kind of manage stuff and leave the client out of the loop, so to speak. But they're like hands-on on pretty much every point of the process. Like every client seems to know exactly what's happening, the status of the campaigns, how the campaigns were built, why they were built that way, and where we're going with them moving forward. And so being a piece of that, and hopefully an increasing measure moving forward, is something that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, it would be so much easier for us to be like, don't worry about it. We've got it. We'll send you, we'll just ship you the results. I mean, that's how a lot of people do it. And that's a way to kind of like lower your fees, is just make it very passive and put less time in. And I think what we saw is like, this is an important channel. Like, let's really attack this aggressively. Let's put a lot of time into it. Let's talk about how this works with the business. Let's get your feedback. And will we put more time into it? Yeah. And we will probably get more results out of it. Let's elevate this to the level of importance that it should be. Now, not every business needs ads to sit on that plane, but I would say most people have discounted what it should be doing. So we feel like that's a unique spot in the market, is someone who's going to be more aggressive on search versus who can charge the least amount of money with poor results, frankly. So that's the game plan. Plus, we have really good people in search. Like, they want to work on more advanced stuff. They don't want to work on like, it's fine, we'll put an hour this month on it and kick it to the next month. Like, that's not fun.
Yeah, right. No, for sure.